Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Aquascaping on the Fly, Living Art Creations, and I'm your host and content creator, Anthony. So first and foremost, if you're new, welcome aboard. And for my, what do we call them now? My FlyScrapers Collective. Yes, oh my God, I remembered it. Oh, finally, yes. Usually I have to write it down on a piece of paper, but I remembered it this time. So the FlyScrapers Collective is what I have named my subscribers. So now the over 300 subscribers we have their own name, and I think it's amazing. I tried to go in and do something specific for you guys, but since I don't have 500 subscribers and something like more videos out there, I can't do anything yet. So, but going forward, when we grow bigger, I'm going to do special things just for my subscribers. So I want you guys to know that will be something that's coming down the pike. What I have for you today, though, is something that's a little bit different. We often have talked about water parameters, and for those of you who are new to the channel, I've got lots of videos. I've got actually 5 dedicated videos to my story, starting with using tap water and how it was killing my shrimp. And I don't have livestock in my tanks yet because I wanted to get the shrimp down and I wanted them to be breeding before we introduced any fish into the tanks. And so we're taking it just a little slower than what other channels might do, just because I'm new and I'm documenting everything I do. And when we have a real world problem, we have to come up with a real world fix. And that means sometimes just dragging the process out. So today we're going to talk about more like a recap and a follow-up to the water issues that I've had. So I did just do, over the last 24 hours, all the tanks that are on this wall. It's been more than 2 weeks since I've had a water change. Now, I was having to do, you guys that are loyal fans and watch the series, you know that I was for a while there having to do weekly water changes because of my GH and my KH was just so over the top. Yes, I do get my items from nature. So I have a couple of tanks that actually are, to get the GH and KH creeping a lot faster than some of these other ones. And then I have some that have the exact same, like wood from the same type of tree that's in a tank where the GH and KH are lowered, because I do know there is evidence out there that shows that certain types of hardscape can soften your water. So you've got a lot of different, it's really a complex balancing system, except for one of my commenters, one of my subscribers that uses, I think he said, river water. I think that's amazing. You know who you are. I've forgotten everyone's name off the top of my head. But I think that's amazing to be able to go out and do that. As a kind of a side note, I grew up on a farm where we use well water. And well water to me was the best tasting water I've ever had in my life. I did have an aquarium when I was growing up, and we used well water. And I can tell you, I never had, well, of course I had guppies, but I never had any issues with, I never had shrimp back then. Oh, I had guppies. I never had any issues with anything in there. Now, of course, there were no live plants. I know it was that kind, I know you guys are just thinking what it is. It's the kind with like the painted rock, yes, guilty. The little treasure chest that bubbled up, yes, guilty. And plastic plants, yes, guilty. Oh my God. So I think the reason why I was compelled to do aquascaping is I'm trying to show that inner child in me that we can put real plants in there and beautiful rocks and create an ecosystem compared to what the child was doing when they would do a water change and they would just dump it down the drain and just pour water out of the faucet. Oh my God, those days were so simple. So simple. I know that some of you out there will be going just like this. Oh my God, I had one of those tanks when I was a kid. Oh yeah, it was horrible. Oh yeah, I had the plastic objects or the ceramic stuff in my tank as decorations. Yes. Okay, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So for today, I wanted to kind of show you where we are. The reverse osmosis system that I put into place a month ago, well, actually it's been, I think now, just a little over a month ago, is starting to work. That is the best takeaway I can give you from it. Its downside is, and this is nothing against an RO system, but I did get the cheapest one on the market. It was under $100. It has an on-off switch, which normally is water that would go to a dishwasher, but it goes to my RO system. So I have to put a hose in the drain, which is just that little 1/4-inch white tubing that comes with it. One of it goes into the drain. The other one goes into the container. Now, it's fine. Like if I'm doing 20 gallons in a big tub, that takes 3 hours. I've got it timed, so I know I can set my timer for 3 hours. What I did the other night is I was just doing 5 gallons because I was just doing top-offs. And normally when I put the 5 gallon, I have a 5-gallon water bottle. I normally put it inside my sink with the tubing going in it. If I happen to forget, it's just going to spill into the sink. Well, on this occasion, I didn't do my dishes. So I had dishes in the sink. I put the water bottle on the counter. I laid down here in the studio, started watching the Pink Panther remake with Steve Martin, the first one. I was laughing so hard, I completely forgot that I had RO water being made. I get up. Now, my flooring in here is not level by any stretch of the imagination, any direction. It's concrete, and they did a horrible job in here. So the water didn't come into the living room part. It flooded my kitchen and the bedroom and the bathroom in the back. Fortunately, I have vinyl flooring, so it was just big wet mess to clean up. Every time I do a water change, every single time I make a mistake. I mess something up. I forget to do something. A tubing comes dislodged from the tank it's going in, and it starts going all over the floor and everything. Every single time. Someone needs to go behind me and make sure everything is attached because I'm notorious for spilling water. I'm so happy that when I did my remodel here, I put in vinyl baseboards and vinyl flooring because I don't have to worry. It just sits on the vinyl. It doesn't get absorbed into anything because the concrete and the walls have been sealed. So I'm happy about that. But please, invest in some cheap towels because you're going to need them if you're like me, if you get distracted and start watching a comedy or something, or for heaven's sakes, one of my favorite romantic movies, Sense and Sensibility. Oh my gosh, I'm a huge Jane Austen fan, and I'll be watching something like that and I'll just be crying over Mr. Darcy and what's going on in their lives, and then all of a sudden I have a flooded kitchen again. So anyway, that's a side note. The things you did not know you were going to learn today on Aquascaping on the Fly. All right. So now for this one is going to be this last test. I have to go back into my notes here. Okay. This is now the 7th RO water mixture that I've done. And that means that I started hitting my stride at level at the 6th. Because between the 6th and the 7th was a full 2 weeks for these dudes. And when we did, when I did my testing, now I always do my GH and KH drop reagent. Okay, I can see my lighting keeps fluctuating. All right, my GH and my KH, I'm doing the reagent. And I've explained this in other videos in detail that I have the paper test strips. Those are really good for your pH and your total alkalinity and your nitrate and your nitrite. But if you try to use it for GH and KH, you really can get skewed data because the difference in color is so slight between one and the next. But the numeric value attached to it is huge. There's a big gap between them. You could easily misread those strips and think you're in the green when you may not be in the green. Well, yeah, it is green actually, but think you may be where it's safe and you may not be safe. So for me, this is how I'm doing my reagents. And I try to explain this on all my videos because a lot of people may get confused about this. When you're doing the reagents, you're supposed to drop one drop at a time. Okay, this is the third video in a row that my nose starts itching. I don't know what's going on. I said that in the last 2 videos. I don't know what's going on. I still don't know what's going on. So you're supposed to be putting one drop at a time. And by putting one drop at a time, you're looking at the color change. Okay, so like those of you who know how to do your GH, you know your GH is supposed to turn green. So as soon as mine goes from orange to the hint of green, that's the number I log in. I don't let it get darker. There's no sense in it going darker. I mean, you can keep adding reagent to it and it will get more, it'll get darker. But my philosophy is if it's changed to the green shade, that's where you log it in at. And I'm doing the same thing on the KH. Trying to get that first initial drop reaction to when it changes color. And I've been doing that consistently. I can't speak. Consistently, thank you, over the last several weeks, especially once we invested in the RO system and then had to learn how to remineralize. So I want to talk to you about the remineralization process. Oh, now that just rolled off easy. You're taking a powder and you're adding it to your RO water because your RO water has everything pulled out of it and it tastes amazing. Matter of fact, those of you who are my watchers will always know I always have tea. Look at this. This is not tea. This is just RO water. I started using it. I keep like at least 1 gallon in the refrigerator all the time because it's delicious. It just tastes amazing. So when you're doing that testing and when you're looking at that and you're looking at your RO water and there's parameters on where you should go as far as when this is the water you're replacing in your tank. Now, and we're talking about under normal circumstances, like a normal water change, whatever your regimen is. Now, I know there's a lot of information out there from some channels that absolutely do not change their water and that their water is fine. That's amazing. I think that is amazing and I would like to get to that level, but I have rocks and hardscape that are creeping up my numbers. So I'm having to balance it out because I want to keep my shrimp to be able to molt and breed because I want them to be self-sustaining populations. That's the whole reason why I separated the colors out in my blue velvets when they bred and they had 3 different colors because I want to see if I can develop a color that would be characteristic of that breed, but also a clear color going forward that we can use in a tank and we could keep increasing our population and putting it into other builds if we want to. So what I have been doing, I have my little cheat sheet here. And I did a video about this little cheat sheet because it was so important for me. I was getting a lot of my data. I have an AI video, how AI is not revolutionizing the aquarium industry. I was going to ChatGPT and getting all my information, all of it. Just going into there, asking the questions. ChatGPT knows every video I've done. They know every title. They know every tank. They know the shrimp I'm doing. So I went to them and said, okay, knowing all this information and my history, this is what they recommended. And so they gave me a range that was lower, that's on the low end of the spectrum of ranges for GH and KH. And I was trying to achieve that and I could not get it that low with what their parameters they were set up. So over one evening, I decided to go in and I pulled up Google AI and I asked the same question under Google AI and came up with a different set of numbers that my tanks can sustain on. So on the recommended, the GH is between a 6 and a 10, and your KH between a 3 and a 6, okay? So that's what you should be looking at when you're doing your testing in your tank. Now, we had just spoke about when you are preparing your RO water, there is also a range that you should be, they say striving for. So on GH, it's between a 4 and a 5, and on KH, it's a 2. So what I've been doing, and I can tell you exactly where my last water came in at, I mixed a half a tub, which is 10 gallons, and I put my RO mix in, and this is where I've been having a little discrepancy. I'm using one of those food scales, very, very sensitive, and I put an empty sauce container on the scale itself, and that should read 0.04 grams by itself. And so what I've been doing then is, if I know the container is 0.04 grams, and I want to get it up to a level to where I'll get this number that I want between 4 and 5 GH, I've been playing around with it. It takes time for it to play around with it. And so I was putting in 0.07. And when I would do a 0.07, my GH came out perfectly at a 4. And my KH came out at a 2. But now this is after weeks of me playing with this and trying to get it done. I'll tell you one thing that's easiest. I take one of my wave makers that I don't even use because it's too powerful for all the tanks. I put a wave maker in the tub with my RO pure water, and then I add my remineralization product in it, and I let the water do the stirring. And I set my timer for 15 minutes, and then I know the water has been adequately mixed. Instead of where they tell the directions to stir it, I don't stir it. I put an aerator in there. Not an aerator, but a wave maker, and it swirls the water around like crazy. So for me, that's a lot easier. I can set that timer, sit down, and go back to my movie that I'm going to watch that's going to flood my kitchen later. But based on this information now, okay, so now remember, your GH, we want between a 6 and a 10. So Blackfish was at 10. Actually, almost all of them were. Tree of Life right here at 10. Eden was 10, Turtle was 9, and Bird was 11. The wood in Bird is different from everybody else, as well as Blackfish. And Tree of Life. So Garden and Turtle are the same wood. So they both came out with one number off. Now, the KH is between a 3 and a 6. My KH came in, Blackfish was 5, Tree was 5, 6, 5, 6. Now, I'm not even talking about my bowls because they're out of whack right now. They were all higher. It is complicating to do a small bowl, something like this. It's the smallest one is probably 1.5 gallons. It is really tough when you get down to that small size because the wood structure that's in there is large. And even though there's just gravel in there, it's still enough to where it creeps up a lot faster. So these I did a 50% water change. But primarily we're talking about our 10 and our 20 gallon here, which is a lot easier to maintain. So my testing came in where I was in line. The only one I was slightly out of was Bird at 1.0. over. I'm not that worried about it because they all had evaporated water, and I put pure RO water in its place. So I'm going to test it again in another week, and we're going to see where it is. Fortunately, I'm hoping going forward that it just doesn't go any higher. I want it to stay where it is so that I don't have to do massive water changes any longer. That part I love. Now for the other things that I'm testing, so TDS, which kind of gives you an overall health of your water, like a really quick snapshot. The TDS on here for the Neo shrimp, because all these numbers are based on Neo shrimp. If you have Cardenia shrimp, oh gosh, your numbers have to be way lower than this because they're even way more sensitive. For the TDS, you want to be between a 150 and a 250 range. And I'm very happy to say that none of the tanks were even over 200. So they're all within range. My lowest was 158 and my highest was 197. So they're spot on. My pH was between 6.4 and 6.8, depending on the tank it was in. The interesting thing is that the higher pH was in these two tanks right here. Not sure why. They share similar rocks. The wood is different, but this wood and this wood is the same. And this one was lower. This one, yeah, so I'm not sure. Not sure what's going on there. And then total alkalinity was anywhere from every tank it was 40, except one was 80, which is fine. And then I had no reading on chlorine, nitrate, or nitrite. So, and that is another reason why I quit using the drop reagents on your chlorine, nitrate, and nitrite, because it's just doing a lot of drops at every single tank. I can put the test strip in and it reads those super quick, and those numbers are easy to translate into real world data for you instead of spending all that time doing the reagents on everything. I want the reagents specifically for KH and GH because that's very sensitive information right there. We have to know exactly how many drops gets it to your desired color, because that will give you the overall health. Now, Blackfish is a little bit of an anomaly. It's had 2 95% water changes in the past 2 weeks because I've cleaned out all the baby shrimp that were in there. Blackfish, if you guys know, had the blue velvets. They had the 3 different colors. So now we have those colors now separated into these 3 tanks. So we have black, red, and the super, super pale aqua blue. And we pulled the breeding pair out, and I'm confirming I've pulled out last night, between the whole day yesterday, I found 6 new babies. So that's generation 2 babies. They're all pale as can be with little red spines. So they're all going to be red. By far, the biggest number, just to give you guys an idea, the biggest number I had were black, I had 9, 17 red, and 7 pale blue. Now, of the babies I've pulled out, they've all been pale red, all of them. So I don't know. I'm going to try and breed these colors separately. I don't know if I'm going to have any success with any of these breeding to keep that color or not. That's the one thing I am concerned about, is can I be able to keep the colors? But as far as the water parameters are going, they all look so much better. Blackfish, I want to confirm that all the babies are out of there, because I did order some orange sun-kissed. I ordered 10 orange sun-kissed, and then I ordered 10 blue dreams for this tank up here. This tank has 2 babies in it, generation 2, so they're just like a little, maybe not even not even a quarter of an inch long yet. They're still super tiny. And I can tell they're going to be blue. I started with 5. I'm down to 2 because the other 3 have showing signs that they're going black. So they removed into Tree of Life. So the 2 that are in there are blue, and I'm going to try and do the darker blue color. So I'm hoping I have better success. And but as far as my takeaways on the RO system, has been a super game changer. It has made it to where I don't have to stress as much because now I know that the tanks are in a lot better shape than they were. Because when I started out, I was only doing like pH testing and the very general testing. I had no idea why I was losing so many of my shrimp right in the very beginning. And then I found out that my water supply is very hard water. And not only is it hard water, it's treated with chloramine. So my takeaway for you guys on this is when you're going to start out, you need to pull up what your water board water is. They put out at least one report every year. So even if you have to look at last year's report, pull the report and find out if you have hard water or soft water, and then what they're using to treat it for bacteria. Is it chlorine or chloramine? Chloramine is a lot more dangerous. It's a lot stronger, and it's not as easy to pull out of your your RO water. You have to get a separate filter for it. So when you if you buy an RO system, they come with filters that are the most generic. But chloramine requires a filter that's a mega size compared to what comes with the kit because it is so much harder to pull out. And I think that's why my water tastes delicious to me, because I know every single thing has been pulled out. Because you can take your TDS meter, put it in your RO water, and it should read 0, meaning there is nothing in that water. That's why my water, to me, tastes better than bottled water, because it hasn't had anything added to it. It's just had everything pulled out of it, and it just tastes like pure water. But the RO system for me is the way to go. It's just be more careful than I am when you're putting water in and out of your tanks. And I've started with doing in the very beginning, I was doing 75% water changes before I was using the RO. And then I brought those down to 50% because I still couldn't figure out why my water was still so hard. And it wasn't until I did the conversion and brought it on the RO system that I could back off a little bit. So now we're about a month using the RO system. And this is now where it's getting a lot easier, to where for the first time, Blackfish, I'm going to have it go another week before I look at doing a water change. And on this episode, I think I'll put in there the pictures that I have of what I'm using to do my water testing, and also the RO system that I purchased online on Amazon. So I hope this resonates with you guys. I hope it helps. Sometimes water is really complicated because if you're dealing with just regular livestock, regular fish, their parameters are so much easier. I decided to take on shrimp first because I wanted those babies to be born before the fish were in there, because they probably will eat them. And I wanted to make sure I had a healthy livestock. Well, the shrimp are a lot harder to take care of because their water parameters are a lot more demanding. And I went with the Neos because they are easier. What's hard with a Neo is, though, they cannot handle water changes. So if you're like I am, you're in an area where you really don't have a very good choice of colors of your neocardenias, and you have to order them online, just avoid the summer, because that's what happened to me with the blue velvets. I got them out of California. I'm in Texas. It took more than 7 days to get here. The ice pack had melted and there was insulation in there, and it was just making it hotter. And I ordered 20 and 18 died within 24 hours because they could not handle that hot water that they were in. But there was a silver lining, because someone gave birth during transit. It was those live births that have now transitioned into all these tanks where I lost all of my shrimp before. So I hope this helps. Thanks for hanging out with me today. You guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you either in the skies or on the next video upload. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.